Chao Moy Sang Taka Karbang.
After a viral speech given during the annual International Marian Festival, Cardinal Luis Tagle found himself in yet another controversy.
Dzień dobry Wasinskim.
From wild accusations of using Pope Francis to gain more popularity to being secretly elected as Pope without the world knowing, it seems the once beloved cardinal is now hated by everybody. So much so that he had to address these rumors in a recent interview.
In this issue, but in other issues as well.
What was his response to these allegations, and what are his thoughts on becoming the new Pope? Join us as we reveal all he said in this interview. Addressing the rumors and allegations. On January 10, 2025, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle delivered a powerful speech during the annual International Marian Festival. This was a big moment for the Cardinal Bishop, as the role he played on that day was one some people believed should be reserved only for Pope Francis, even though it wasn't the first time. Because of this, many thought Luis was on his way to becoming the next leader, especially with ongoing news of the current Pope struggling with various health conditions. Some claimed that Luis was already appointed by Pope Francis as the next leader, implying that his current role as Red Pope meant he was just one step away from leading the entire Catholic Church. Some couldn't tell the difference between his role as the Red Pope with that of the Supreme Leader, while others accused the Bishop Cardinal of only supporting Pope Francis out of ambition. They used the speech he allegedly gave in place of the Pope as proof of that. But while these accusations were shocking to many, his response was just as surprising. To address these rumors and allegations, just a few days after the historic Marian celebration, the Bishop Cardinal had a private talk with delegates from Vatican media where he spoke about various issues like synodism and what people have said concerning the role he played during the festival. During that talk, the Bishop Cardinal made it clear that he isn't the current Pope and is also not planning to become one anytime soon. He further addressed the confusion about his current role by stating he is only known as the Red Pope because he is in charge of mission territories in Asia and Africa, but that doesn't mean he is the global leader of the Catholic Church. Just like the current Black Pope is the current head of the Jesus Society, but is also not the global leader of the Catholic Church. As for his relationship with Pope Francis, Luis revealed that it has never been out of ambition, as their friendship lasted long before either of them could even dream of becoming the Pope. Here is all he said. How he met Pope Francis. Based on all he revealed to Vatican media, Luis first met the current Pope on the 19th of April 2005, shortly after the meeting of cardinals that voted Pope Benedict XVI. After the meeting, they spoke for a short while, and that was how they became friends. But being his usual self during the discussion, Luis went all the way back to his early years in the late 50s. Born in the Philippines to a very religious home, his parents, Manuel and Milagros, were very devoted to what they believed. According to Luis, his parents were so devoted that they would not agree with most of the progressive things he stands for today. Though he wasn't as religious as his parents, what made him stand out from most other children was that he loved reading. Ironically, this made him a lot more informed about the Catholic faith from a young age compared to other children who were far more devoted than he was. But here was the twist. The big difference was that he didn't want to serve in the church, but rather dreamed of becoming a doctor. Because of this, he started reading difficult science journals at 13. But as he grew older, many things he learned didn't seem to add up. The famous theories of evolution on their own didn't make sense to him, because as far as he knew, something had to be the driving force behind it. As a professing Catholic, part of him believed it was God, but he couldn't prove it yet. To get more answers, Luis abandoned his dream of becoming a doctor by choosing to study philosophy at Ateneo de Manila University. All the philosophical arguments he came across and studied seemed to point toward God, so to make more sense of it, he went on to study theology at the Catholic University of America. During this time, he found fulfillment in serving his local church, and on February 27, 1982, thanks to his hard work, he was ordained as a priest by Bishop Felix Perez in Imus, Cavite. Thanks to his deep understanding of Christian philosophy and theology, Luis became known for his intelligence and kindness. Locals came to him for help and advice on difficult issues, most of whom were young men struggling with their faith. As someone who once struggled with believing in God, many thought his answers were brilliant and compelling, and he quickly became known to locals as the man who brought people back to the church. Because of how famous he was chosen to be the Bishop of Imus in 1982. Various reports tell us that he worked very hard to please the people who lived there, and his growing influence got him involved in planning one of the biggest events in the Catholic Church, the conclave. This was a special meeting of elders within the church to elect the next global leader, and that was where he met the current Pope Francis. Here's how it went. According to Luis, the person we know today as Pope Francis isn't what he was known by in 2005. You see, the name Pope Francis was more like a title he got when he was elected. Back then, he was known as Archbishop Jorge Mario Bergoglio. One thing that brought them close when they first met was their shared love for theology and philosophy. Jorge, now known as Pope Francis, had studied both courses in San Miguel. Looking back, Luis points out that they had a deep passion for social justice. This passion was so deep that it caused them to clash with those who knew much more than them. Like himself, Jorge had also wrestled with his more devout parents on social justice, believing that while the Bible has strict rules on sensitive topics, it is also important to show love to those who refuse to obey them. They also had a shared passion for the poor, a passion they grew to accept not everyone had. April 19, 2005, was when the conclave came to an end, and it was also the day Luis had the pleasure of meeting Jorge for the first time. Though they didn't talk much, it was clear they had a lot in common, and this was most obvious during the 2005 Synod of Bishops. During this meeting, leading church bishops from around the world had the chance to share their views on various issues within the church, and throughout the meeting, as Luis recalled, nobody reflected his thoughts better than Jorge. It seemed they agreed with each other on everything, and that was when they grew from fellow servants of the church to lifelong friends. Luis mentioned a few moments they met each other in the years after, stating how much they learned from their encounters and the little time he wished they had to hang out more. Ironically, that was the exact direction where his life was headed, as we shall see. Becoming the future pope. Today, many see Luis Tagle as the one who would lead after Pope Francis. In response, Luis made it clear that he chooses to focus more on the present by serving the people around him. As for whether he becomes the next pope, he leaves that for God to decide. For now, Luis believes he's better off focusing on the present instead, as ambitions like that can oftentimes be distracting. While explaining why people think this way, he recalled what life was like serving as a local bishop. While Luis was always praised and supported by the locals, one problem he always struggled with was properly expressing his thoughts whenever he spoke. Unlike most other leaders he knew, the bishop wasn't very good at expressing himself. Because of this, most of his best public and private talks came from several hours of writing. Luis was so good at this that he became a respected theologian, known for making the most difficult concepts easy to understand for the average person through his writings. This brought him so much fame that he was chosen to be the Archbishop of Manila, one of the highest positions in the Philippines Catholic Church. One thing many liked about his leadership was his approach to preaching what he believed. While the average preacher worked by telling people what they believed, Luis went for a more practical approach, believing the masses needed to be properly cared for before getting informed about the faith. This way, he believes, the faith can be more accessible and practical for those who don't believe it yet. This approach was very successful, bringing more people into the Philippines Catholic Church as time went by. Thanks to these efforts, Luis was promoted by Pope Benedict to the role of cardinal on November 24, 2012, and this was just the beginning. On February 28, 2013, after a few major struggles with his health, Pope Benedict stepped down from his role, leading to the next meeting of cardinals that would elect the next pope. Luis Tagle was one of the cardinals who voted that day, and thanks to his support and many others like him, his friend Jorge Bergoglio was elected as the new pope, now known to the world as Pope Francis. May 23, 2019, started a long streak of events that sparked the first rumors of Luis becoming the next pope, as he was elected president of the Global Confederation of Catholic Relief Organizations, commonly known as the Caritas Internationalis. Though Luis didn't speak much about how it happened, rumors indicate the vote difference was by a large margin, implying that many leaders in the Catholic Church are on his side. Although the job didn't last for long, things got even more interesting when Pope Francis and many elders in the magisterium appointed Luis as prefect of the Congregation for Evangelization of Peoples, an office known to many as the Red Pope. This gave him rulership over all missionary efforts in Asia and Africa, and he accepted his role officially on January 6, 2020. During that time, many people within the Catholic faith didn't agree with Pope Francis on a lot of the things he advocated, like blessing pride couples, directly addressing climate change, changing immigration policies, and allowing divorced Catholics to participate in sacraments. In response to this, from early 2021 till late 2024, Cardinal Luis encouraged all leaders to align with Pope Francis on these issues, believing the Catholic Church would only thrive when all leaders put aside their differences and cooperate, and then came the accusations. After his first open statement about this, many opposing Catholics and a few supporting Protestants found the Bishop Cardinal's statements repulsive, with some of them believing he was only doing this to secure his role as the next pope.
Pope Francis made a whirlwind visit to the revered Catholic shrine of Fatima in Portugal,
where Virgin Mary appeared to 3 shepherd children in 1917. They said she gave them 3 messages.
And a third secret more recently revealed to be the assassination attempt on Pope John Paul II, which happened on May 13, 1981.
As we approach the 110th anniversary of the apparitions of Our Lady of Fatima, the current global situation continues to push many to demand clearer explanations of the third secret of Fatima that she benevolently shared with the 3 young shepherds in 1917. With a clear understanding of his papal position in the midst of these prophecies, Pope Francis has finally revealed some truths about the third secret of Fatima. What is the significance of these truths to humanity's future? What significance do these papal revelations hold, and how can we respond to them? Join us in this video as we unravel everything you need to know.
On May the 13th, 1917, in Cova de Iria, 3 children were tending their flock of sheep when they witnessed the supernatural apparition of a beautiful young lady.
Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco were given the secrets of Fatima on July 13, 1917, but it was kept secret until July 1941, when Sister Lucia shared the first 2 secrets as directed by the bishop. Much later, Saint Lucia revealed the third of the secrets that have led to various controversies since its release. Now the Pope has shared some profound revelations on the secrets to guide us on what is next. Before we delve into the details of what the Pope shared, let's explore some details about how the secrets came to be. Custodians of the secrets of the Fatima. The secret of the Fatima was revealed to 3 children on the 13th of May in 1917. They were young shepherds of Aljustrel village, somewhere around Fatima in Portugal. While they tended some of their flocks at the Cova da Iria, they experienced something unusual. It was about noon. They had just finished reciting the rosary, and they decided to have a playtime building little stone houses. At the time, these 3 cousin shepherds were aged 10, 9, and, respectively. The first was Lucius de Jesus, and her cousins Francisco and Jacinto. These 3 children had a spectacular experience when a great light suddenly appeared before them. It wasn't familiar, and they made to leave because the only thing their little minds could relate to it was that the bright light was lightning. Then again, another flash of light appeared in the clearing before them, and this time, a lady described as brighter than the sun appeared before them, just above a small holm oak. She had a white rosary hanging from her hands, and she began to speak to them. Now, what did she tell them? The lady wanted them to come to the Cova de Iria on every 13th day of the month for the next 5 months. The children went back in the first 3 months, but after they began sharing their experience of the lady's visit with others, they were believed to be telling lies. This made the mayor of Nova de Urem take them away in a bid to make them confess that they were lying. Outside the designated meeting site with the lady, they had another unexpected apparition while grazing their flock in Valinhos, another village about 500 meters from their village, on August 19th.
The earliest known apparition of the Virgin Mary isn't quite an apparition at all, it's more a bilocation. Our Lady appeared while she was still living.
Subsequently, they returned to the Cova de Iria on the 13th of September and October. By the last visit, the news of the apparitions had spread, and about 70,000 people were present on the last day to experience the apparition with them. In the presence of the people, the lady told the children that she was Our Lady of the Rosary and requested that they build a chapel in her honor right on that site. This chapel was built and named the Chapel of the Apparitions and is still on the site. But did this happen on mere accounts of the children's experience? Absolutely not. Most people didn't believe them. At that time, about 30,000 people gathered to experience the apparition as the children claimed. This made the Blessed Lady promise the children that a miracle would happen the next month so that all who doubted would believe them. In fulfillment of this, after a rainy day, they saw the sun emerge behind the clouds like a disk, bright with various beautiful colors that were easy to look at, which was in itself a miracle, as no one can look at the sun shining with such intensity without it being a miracle. After this, it spun like a fireball, as though it would fall to the ground for 10 minutes. This nearly unbelievable miracle was witnessed by thousands of people, and it became known as the miracle of the sun.
Everybody was saying that if the miracle did not happen, the whole family would die. And so he stayed home. He was afraid. And because he was afraid to die, he wasn't there when the miracle of the sun occurred.
These experiences led to the acceptance of the first, second, and third secrets of Fatima that the lady shared with the children. So, what were these secrets? You're about to find out. Unveiling the secrets of Fatima. While 3 children received the secrets from the lady, only one of them was able to share what the lady said to them. Shortly after the apparition experience, something devastating happened in Fatima, leaving only Sister Lucia to recount the secrets that the lady had shared with her and her cousins. Francisco and Jacinta had died 1 year apart from each other due to the outbreak of the flu in Fatima. Although severely ill, Francisco spent most of his years after the vision offering his life as a penance to console the Lord, despite his health. Jacinta also suffered a similar fate as she spent her time praying and offering her sufferings for praying for peace in the world, the unsaved, and the Holy Father. When they died, in 1919 and 1920 respectively, Francisco was initially buried in the parish cemetery, and Jacinta was buried in her family tomb and later interred at the parish cemetery. By 1930, the Catholic Church declared that the miracle of the sun was worthy of belief. Later, in 1952, a tomb was prepared in the basilica at Cova da Iria, where they were buried to the right and left of the main altar respectively. They became beatified in 1979, and they were declared venerable by Pope John Paul II on the 13th of May, 1989. Lucia, on the other hand, survived the flu, and by 1921, she joined the College of Villar and was sent to Tuy. She made her confession as a nun on October 3, 1934. 7 years later, she wrote in her memoir, The Secret of the Fatima, that she received alongside her late cousins over 2 decades earlier. Now, let's look at the first secret. The first secret was a sea of fire that the lady showed them. It seemed to be beneath the earth, and she saw souls and demons in the fire. They were floating in the blazing fire like transparent burning embers. The flames of the fire made them rise into the air and fall back without weight, yet amidst shrieks and groans of pain. The souls had a human form, but the demons looked terrifying like unknown animals and were black yet transparent. She described the sight as terrifying. After this vision lasted, the lady made them know that there was something that could be done to save many souls from going to hell, for wars to end, and for peace to reign. She told them that this would happen if people stopped offending God, but if not, something worse would happen. Truly, the fulfillment of her requests marked the end of the First World War, which was currently raging at the time. The lady shared the second secret with the children, telling them to devote themselves to her immaculate heart. It made the children so happy knowing that her heart would be their refuge and lead them to God. They would often sing happily while picking wildflowers, calling on Sweet Mary to be their salvation, convert sinners, and save their souls from hell.
Buonasera.
As a leader of the Catholic Church, it is expected that the Pope upholds traditional church doctrine. But with Pope Francis, the case is different.
Francis is the first pope from the Americas, the first of his name, and more than any other pope in recent memory, has dedicated his life and ministry to the poor, the peripheral, and the forgotten.
As instead, he has been challenging and reforming these beliefs, an act that has earned him more hate, direct attacks, opposition, and backlash from the leadership of the Church.
Protecting a pope who wants to be accessible to the public is never an easy task. Unlike other world leaders who are very conscious of their threat, the Pope feels that it's part of his mission to be a man of the people, especially this Pope.
Pope Francis, as we all know, is undoubtedly one of the most controversial popes in history who isn't scared of shaking things up in the Church.
His Holiness Pope Francis of the Vatican.
The first pope in history to travel to Bahrain.
قداسة البابا فرانسيس بابا الفاتيكان. His Holiness Pope Francis of the Vatican.
His attempt and approach towards the Church Reformation have been so outlandish that, at some point, his beliefs were questioned, and he was heavily accused of being heretic. Newsflash, he's at it again. As in a recent event, he was found making some really terrifying revelations about Jesus and the Bible. What did he say, and why is it raising this much dust in the Christian community? Let's find out. Pope Francis and the controversies surrounding him. On May 21, 2018, Juan Carlos Cruz, a courageous whistleblower who was a victim of Chile's shocking clergy sex